Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Wake Up Missoula. I'm your host, Scott Ramp, here to usher you into September 26th, 2025. It is an interesting week in censorship, just in general, as we have a lot of things happening in the news and everything happening all at once. Not to mention the Montana DOJ is looking to sue the big four tech companies for an upcoming data farming and energy costs related to that, and not giving a fair chance to coal. So interesting things happening there. The Montana Free Press has some more information on that moving forward. Also, I wanted to mention that MCAT is doing the homecoming parade next October 11th at 10 a.m. That's when they launch off and start doing the parade in downtown Missoula area. So you guys can check that out live on our channel 189. We'll try to get it out for you guys to be able to watch it as soon as possible as well. So you guys can check it out on October 11th, whether it's going to be live on our Facebook page, channel, or going to be repeated later on our YouTube page later that afternoon. We'll guarantee that you guys will be able to get to see the homecoming parade for the University of Montana and the Missoula area, one of the biggest parades in Missoula at the time. So once we dive in, let's talk about Monday's meeting. This is my city council report where I talk about what's happening in the city government and some of the committee meetings that kind of tag along to some of the things that are going to be happening next week. But next week we don't have a city council meeting because it is the fifth Monday of the month, and a lot of times the city council don't meet up that time. So we're going to have a full Friday today, and the next week we're going to devote most of it to art, as it is First Friday, and that is the celebration and all the new installations of the art galleries in the city of Missoula. So let's jump right into Monday's meetings. It was a nice hour and 30 minutes with the focus on Ward 1 rules of the elections and change of favor of the elected member to be sworn in pretty much the day after rather than it being in January. But before the city focused on the 2024 report from CDBG and home grants, they had to help bolstering the Missoula Housing Authority for urban development of affordable housing. So Kendra Lysom, Community Development, spoke about these numbers in terms of the program year.
In 2024, we funded one home project and continued progress on a large rehab project that was funded in 2023. And CDBG can be used for a variety of different activities, including home ownership and rental acquisition, rehabilitation, housing education, and public services. And this year we funded 4 CDBG projects. So with CDBG, we funded priority rehab at Homeward's Orchard Gardens affordable apartments. Rehab included the replacement of heat pumps, flooring, and the water heater. And this work will preserve 35 affordable units for low to moderate income individuals. We also supported the continuation of an owner-occupied rehabilitation program for loans to homeowners with low and moderate incomes. And so far, we've assisted 3 homeowners, and we have the capacity to help up to 4 additional households.
Okay. So if you guys are interested in finding out more about these resources, especially those looking to become a first-time home buyer, Homer's first-time home buyer classes, they help with the purchase and additional funds to help bolster down payments to help alleviate monthly payments for your mortgage. They also installed 18 ADA compliant ramps for homes in Missoula as these kinds of projects updates and improved living conditions, as an example, as water heaters and complex as redeveloping dwelling units for residents that use the Missoula Housing Authority housing program. 2024 saw 208 people benefit in some way from these grants. While this sounds great, future funding is never guaranteed in times of cost cutting. Lisa Bauer, grants administrator, talks a little bit about the shortfalls.
There are some concerns about the future of these programs. The great news is that as of today, we've received our signed grant agreements from HUD, which funds us through June of next year at more or less similar funding levels to what we have now. However, the more negative side of that is the debate about what our funding will look like after June is really up in the air at this point. It's what's under debate in Congress right now. Both the House and the Senate versions of the federal FY26 budget bill, as of today, have kept the CDBG program. The House, however, is proposing getting rid of the home program completely in line with the president's proposed budget. Senate has proposed keeping it, though, so it's really unclear where it's going to go from here in terms of middle ground and the future of home programming. There is a draft bill as well in the House in a different committee that is revising the requirements of home to actually make it more manageable and less restrictive, which we could see as potentially positive change should home be funded in the future.
Yeah, and it seems like many of these social programs that are being cut left and right for a lot of different things. You know, if the government shuts down, future funding will be in limbo for months before any project can benefit from these programs. Like most legacy grants, this is one relative to Missoula Housing Authority, Homeward, Human Resource Council in Missoula, and their support for low-income folks. And this has been something that's been a part of Missoula since 1978. So it's definitely some of the things that people don't really think about until it's gone, and there's just not a lot of availability with that. And even if they try to bring it back, it's going to take months to years before any of these kind of programs can get reinitialized and basically sand down some of the edges. A lot of times when they remove these programs, the whole idea is that when you try to bring back similar programs, it has to be new and innovative rather than just taking what worked and just revamping that. And so that's something that a lot of politics and politicians never tend to do, because when the program's gone, you can't just copy and paste, even though that a lot of times people end up trying to do, but at the same time it can get complicated. Amber Sherrill, City Council, talks about the importance of having a full-time council member as we start talking about the Ward 1 vacancy and filling that gap in.
You know, I say that I say that knowing we can go through the whole process too. We can go through that whole process, and then City Council will decide who sits in that seat. 6 of us, because it's only a simple majority, and we have 11 people on council. So that would mean that 6 people in this community would decide who sits in that seat for the next 3 months and who votes on code reform at the end of the year, one of the biggest things that will affect our community into the future. So, you know, thinking that through, we came up with this plan to get someone in more quickly that was democratically elected instead of, you know, maybe just 6 of us deciding who would fill that seat.
And part of the controversy behind some of those statements also has to do with the fact that it doesn't necessarily follow the state rules, and has opened them up to a lot of criticism throughout this. And this is a big part of it, is that part of the big motivation is they don't want to appoint somebody kind of out of the blue to work on the Unified Development Code, which is essentially the culmination of the city to become compliant with the state to create new city planning zoning board to help streamline development. So they say that this is a big deal in City Council, and they just don't want a new person kind of being fairly uneducated on this particular matter. So they just decided that this would just be easier on everyone just to move forward with this. But, you know, Bob Campbell, who is on City Council, is really worried about not following state procedure and the state rule.
A candidate for an elective office may not assume the powers and duties of that office until the candidate has received a certificate of election as provided by law. I'll read that again. A candidate for elective office may not assume the powers and duties of that office until the candidate has received a certificate of election as provided by law. A certificate of election may only be issued by the public official responsible for issuing a certificate or a commission of election. So that tells me right there, we're jumping the gun. I mean, as much as anybody want to get somebody duly elected, we keep using that phraseology a lot, into the seat, but we shouldn't be so hasty as to go against Montana statute, I think. I think the way the recommended motion is put out there, I think we do violate Montana code. And I think we need to go through a process of canvass with whoever the winner is and, you know, congratulate them, but they need to be canvassed first before they're sworn in. So that's why I made the amendment.
So essentially the whole point of once the person is duly elected, then the City Council board would essentially create the canvass. Otherwise, the voting time for the City Council to vote that person into that seat. So instead of kind of bypassing the rule altogether, they're just going to wait on the rule to fill that vacancy, which is why the weird kind of like 30, 60-day vacancy grace period kind of happened just lately as a means to be convenient to not going through the process. So yeah, it's very weird, but you know, Mike Nugent also reflects on Bob Nugent's amendment, and this is from City Council.
And whoever wins that race and is after the canvass receives the certificate and all that, they start in January. So whoever we appoint, that term that is to complete the current term, and their service ends at the end of this calendar year, or sometimes January 1st or 2nd, whatever the swear-in date is. So that's really, we're appointing someone to finish a term, and then they would start their first full term. So if somehow unprecedented things happen, because it's in the resolution as came out of committee last week, if the vote total is not within the automatic trigger of a recount, we would follow through and appoint that person to finish the term. I believe that the resolution makes sense as it was written and it was voted on, because we are just following the will of the people, but we're asking that person to come start serving right away, as opposed to waiting and holding it vacant any longer.
All right, so yeah, there's just a lot of going back and forth, and back to Karen Giuliani with public comment, who has been outspoken about this particular matter, about the kind of blatant transparency issues that they have with this particular case, and just kind of kicking the can down the road up into this point. And so this is her response.
I really think that would have solved this is for you just to follow the rule. Anyway, I'm disappointed, as I think this decision that you're making here is important, and I feel like it's kind of just like, oh, well, let's just get rid of the rule and we'll just go ahead with what we think is more democratic. And I don't know, it doesn't feel right to me, especially in light of things that are happening in our country here, that we just won't follow the rules, I guess.
All right. So that was the interpretation just from the public. This is definitely one of those great debates, and that just kind of came out of nowhere. That's kind of what politics and government really is. It's like you bring up something that you think is going to be a lot easier, and then it becomes more complicated down the road. And so it's like the rules were in place because they were complicated to that point to help clarify things, and then they get more complicated, and then you try to clear it up. So a lot of the rules have to apply to that, not to mention you have to apply certain sentences in certain resolutions, just to be like, oh, we forgot this one thing that is kind of unspoken, but we haven't really spoken about it, but actually be asked to be on record. So that's the important part of having your I's dotted, lowercase j's dotted, because that's kind of what it feels like, because it's not just enough to cross the T's and dot the I's, but you also have to make sure that the lowercase j's are dotted too, just because the details are really, the devil is in the details. But as we go further into public comments, security companies are joining together to bring to attention the city of Missoula's of issues with not being transparent enough when it comes to the bidding process for their security groups as opposed to North Star. So here's Jody Steele from North Star Security and James Hatton from Talos Security, both doing a back-to-back comment on this matter.
There's only a couple of things that I wanted to speak about tonight. One of them was I was unaware that the city of Missoula had expanded its security needs in the last several years. And so I was kind of surprised, not to take anything away from Black Knight Security. I know Wade personally. But we never saw where there was a bidding process for those contracts. So I guess my question would be, in the future, will there be? I don't want to take anything away from any of the other security companies in town, but we would like to maybe be on a level playing field where that's considered, because we are all local businesses.
Yeah, I just wanted to second the last speaker. I don't know what the process is for RFPs, if that's something that the city requires for the contracts like the Black Knight contract. So if we're remiss in not being aware of when those RFPs are going out, then we accept that. But if that's not happening, that's something that we would like to have rectified, and we'd like a chance, of course, to bid on what is, ultimately public funds being used for a service that impacts the public, and we would like a little bit more clarity on how that process is moving forward.
So essentially for the next 48 hours, by the time they get to this next meeting, which actually addresses those issues during public safety and health, which I bring to my next comment, with Mike Brady, who is the risk and safety manager and former police chief, responded to those concerns, kind of talked about those.
So there was a competitive process on this contract in 2021, June of 2021. I believe we had 4 vendors apply. The process, an RFP or request for proposal processes are posted. They're available on the city's website, and the guidelines for the scope of work and the items that we're looking for are posted with that request for proposals. So our purchasing policy and admin rule allows for the renewals of current contracts. So this contract will not be renewed again. It will go to RFP for that.
All right. So what that means is essentially that they're going to continue working with the same group, but they don't. But they're going to be putting it up back to the bidding process much later. So the bid didn't exist because it didn't exist since 2021, and that was a while ago. But anyone looking for any new security contracts will look at this new bid, which from the comment from Mike Brady said that the next bidding process for any kind of security expansion or apparatus in Missoula will be May, June of 2026. So that's when it's going to be happening. And even with the Black Knight amendment was related to park and right-of-way security to reflect the costs of living and hourly wages. So cost of living wage increases was part of this ongoing renewal of this contract to reflect that. It isn't necessarily much of a renewal as it is just like further working with this organization and touching base with them before our contract is up by the end of basically next year. Mariana Jones, president of Black Knight Security, fields questions on the presence of parks as it relates to Daniel Carlino's questions and concerns about what they're going to be doing in parks and kind of what they're doing since, things have kind of eased out because of the federal funding in regards to most of the security apparatuses.
We actually don't have any authority in the public right-of-way. That is strictly the police department. That's why we work within the scope of our contract. City parks, shelters, city parks, shelters. We will be helping co-compliance with her VPP program. Since she is now in charge of our contract. However, that is just by inspections. We will have actually nothing to do with talking to the individuals. So if we see something that they're not following the rules, we'll reach out to code compliance, we'll write a report directly, but we will have no interactions with them at all.
And the same thing goes with the public right-of-way. They're asking people to, if someone is obstructing a sidewalk, they're asking someone to move aside. But when it comes to actually moving those individuals, they will be up to code enforcement and law enforcement to do that.
All right. So a lot of times the security apparatus that's going to be around some of these parks are necessarily going to be around to mitigate any kind of issues that might come up. And basically the whole point was to, what's that called? De-escalate situations. Yeah. Carmel Owens, co-compliance manager, essentially stated that the people should report and observe these incidents of park camping overall. Like most anything, that's the whole idea, is that they're existing in a place that makes you feel uncomfortable, not necessarily breaking the law as it pertains to an ordinance which was created by the city of Missoula to initially fine them for existing in these parks that make you uncomfortable. There you go. Bob Campbell, City Council, is confused by the money being spent on this in terms of kind of like why or what was the deal. And, he came in a little bit later after the fact, but this is a good clarification for people who don't know. We've been paying Black Knight since 2021, and this is just a continuance.
Torn because they're asking for your services and not paying for it, as I see it anyway. And perhaps that's something, as we look to the future, when we do have a renewal of contract, that, we explore language that, either, reconstructs involvement of, whichever security firm handles city business at that point. But I just find it partly troubling that, we're spending public dollars, for a security outfit to handle issues that happen at Poverello. Yet Poverello doesn't have a contract with any security firm, maybe and thereby not contributing financially to the situation. So I guess it's just general comment to look at as we move forward.
Yeah, and in many ways, if you thought about it before the pandemic, the city really didn't have much to do with the homeless population as they deferred to a lot of those services to the POV. Part of this also has to do with the city slowly uncoupling essentially from the POV and a lot of those services and it's not beyond the realm of possibility that the de-escalate situation and prevent things from getting out of control, and also the cost savings for paying for security versus paying for police to handle those day-to-day issues that happen there. And a lot of times by the time they get there, that tends to be trying to control the situation as opposed to de-escalating the situation, which they have been trained to do, but at the same time they have a lot of other things they have to do, and they get paid more as opposed to the security. They don't get paid as much as the local city police. So one of the reasons why security was put there in the first place was to handle those basic needs on the cheap. And part of this also, we'll talk a little bit more about this, but Dale Bickle, Chief Administration, talks a little bit more about that, and this is what he has to say about that.
We've built a lot of policies and procedures, so we know exactly what role is what versus whether it's security, our code compliance team, or law enforcement, and so that's been developed as we have developed this this urban camping program, and so that's really, and we have including city attorney on understanding people's rights, and particular constitutional rights of being able to be placed in public places, and so that's really how we have tried to mitigate that.
All right. So yeah, they're just trying to do the best they can and without taking a person's civil liberties away. But mind you, all of these evolved from pandemic demand for expanded service related to homelessness. It was a very rough patch, and while Black Knight Group has been present, it seems that it will end up being kind of like a slowdown of services moving forward. This will be a part of overreaching budget for the next season. So, a lot of ways, this kind of feels like the whole security thing is probably going to shrink within the next couple months to, if not years, in the presence of Missoula just as a whole. So as we go further down into the meetings, we're going to be talking about public works and mobility, which is talking about some of those changes that is happening in the downtown Missoula area, which includes Front and Main Street. I'm pointing actually in the physical directions of where they are in opposition to me here in the library. Front and Main, they're looking at two-way conversions. It's the Higgins Avenue multimodal improvements. You're going to be hearing multimodal a lot in this particular case, but this has been an update in the waiting for quite some time now because they talked about it. They kind of left it out there. It's been kind of sitting there for about a year or so. Then there's the uncertainty with the new president, whether or not these grants are going to be awarded because these are the raised grants, which is part of the Build Back Better program. And the Big Beautiful Bill went counter to a lot of those Biden era initiatives. But this has been an update, and they're looking to basically get to the 30 percentile of the planning phase so they can get acquired for the grants. So as we're talking about that, Megan McKicken, Senior Project Manager, talks about where they are at currently in this design process.
This year, our project team has been working towards a 30% design milestone. So this means that we have a workable framework for key design concepts for the project elements, but we have yet to figure out some of the fine details of the design. So to put this in other contexts, it's similar to building a house. So at this point, we know that maybe we want, we've got our lot figured out. We know where we want the house to be placed. We know how we want it oriented. We know maybe it's a 4-bedroom, 3-bath house. But what we have to figure out for that house yet is maybe the paint colors or the tile for the backsplash and those fine details. So we're starting with just this big picture framework for now.
All right. And so, for the most part, they got the big picture down for the hip strip with they're trying to convert it into single lanes from the 2 lanes throughout Bear Track, Brooks, all the way to the red X's, rather than it just being essentially Main Street to, it's west of Broadway. Yeah, west of Broadway, or north of Broadway, my bad. I'm getting mixed up, but north of Broadway is essentially what they want to kind of continue with most of the lanes as it kind of slowly converts those 4 lanes into more like 2 lanes with a bump out of bike lanes and a center turning lane for people to turn. And that's kind of like their big picture idea for the idea, but with the front and Main Street conversion, I haven't really seen any kind of conceptual plans on that particular thing, just so you guys know. I don't know, I'm whispering, but still. But the best laid plans need more designs and plans. The house and analogy was nice, Budge, but requiring a paint color before you build a house kind of feels sophomoric in its claiming, but we're working with raised grant money and they have what they need, but the cost of bidding won't come back until the end of October. So we're still kind of not knowing exactly, while the construction season only really begins in spring. The planning phases, this is the big chunk of everything for permitting, getting everything all squared away for when the first spring thaw happens. Boom, they can start breaking ground and doing some work. Megan talks about the process and she continues a little bit more about some of the information.
As I'm talking through these designs, it's really important to emphasize a couple things. One is that nothing is truly final until it's in the ground and in place. However, it is best practice for any project that the earlier we can make these key decisions and stick with those decisions, the better it looks for our schedule and our budget along the way. So I come back to this building a house example. What we don't want to happen is, we finally have this design concept and then we're picking out tile and then we say, hey, actually, I want the house located over here and I actually want it to face north-south instead of east-west. Or maybe we want a craftsman style house instead of a split level. So we don't want to make those big changes later in design, and that may work.
Yep, so that's a big part of it, is that if you're going to make something that is major and big as this process, unlike homes, the kinds of projects affect not only Missoula, but the county and state in terms of transportation. You're messing with the road, and if any of these streets intersect Montana Department of Transportation roads, hence Orange Street, which is a part of the front and Main Street, and it's going to be converted, can you imagine the kind of traffic coming in and out of it, basically from the front and Main Streets that have been converted to both ways? Essentially, it's already a malfunction junction on all those streets that surround Orange, Front, Main, just to have that particular area to go through. And so that's another one of those things they really have to think about when moving forward on all these plans, because when it comes down to it, like the hipster plan seems like it's right there, everything you need to know about it. And Megan even kind of talks a little bit more about Higgins on the hip strip changes. They have a lot of designs. They already have an idea of what their concept of what they want to do with it. And here's Megan again talking about the hip strip.
And this general concept, we've got some more work to do, particularly at, the 5th to 6th section, as that's the US Highway 12 route. But we're proposing this typical section to maintain the design concept of the two-way travel lanes and center turn lanes. This typical section was selected due to, with the more narrow right-of-way space that we have and the predicted peak travel volumes. The FHWA guidance documents and the City of Missoula Bike Facilities Master Plan both recommend raised bike lanes to get the most out of the available space.
All right, as you can definitely see right here, you have your basic travel lanes right there. You have parking there, very much like how they have on the northern part of Higgins past Broadway, where you have those green bike lanes right here. You have another boulevard that separates the bike lanes from the sidewalk, hence to kind of get rid of that whole battling between the pedestrian and the walker. Don't get me wrong, there's still people who are going to be riding their bikes on sidewalks. It's going to still annoy a lot of people, but regardless of that, it's just going to give an option to people to have that a little bit more of a safer travel and have that connection, especially for bikers who want to go down the hip strip, which if you're a biker and you're going down the hip strip off of Higgins, don't. I mean, heck, I can barely even stand the idea of a biker going down Higgins as a whole, just because it just feels so dangerous. Just in general, I feel more comfortable on Southwest Higgins biking down that area, just because the lanes feel a little bit wider and you're not so worried about it. But once you get into the hip strip area, you have all that parking, just cars coming in and out. It's just insane. But let's not talk too much about that, because once we get into cars, once we get into traffic, once we get into parking, it becomes this whole nightmare of just convoluted conversations going back and forth. But she also mentioned that Bear Track Bridge will continue the trend of single lanes going either direction. That was one of the questions that was brought up, is that one of the motivations behind converting the hip strip from 4 lanes to those 2 lanes with the middle turning lane is essentially the ease and the traffic impacts to when the construction of Bear Tracks Bridge on Higgins occurred. Essentially, they determined that there wasn't much in a change in traffic. There was still healthy amount of traffic going back and forth. It wasn't a big deal. There were just 2 lanes at the time when they were doing one side of the bridge and then the other, and they determined it was like, hey, this actually makes a lot more sense to, have that less congestion. Nobody's being backed up, and Higgins is now one of those streets that people are backed up for long period of time, much like they used to be on Russell, which still kind of is the case for the most part, even if they did add that extra lane. But Megan talks about front and main and some of the conversion, some of the techniques they're hopefully going to be trying to do, but for the most part, I didn't see too much in terms of design standard plans.
From the grant agreement, we've agreed to, restore both Front Street and Main Street from one-way traffic to two-way traffic and improve these sections by restriping, adding parking lane modifications, bicycle facilities, intersection improvements, installing a new signal at the intersection of Front Street and Madison, and then reconfiguration of the intersection at Front, Main, and Orange.
So one thing that you should also learn from listening to that particular quote from Megan was the fact that grant requirement. So grant requirement is because they're going to be getting all this money to improve, Bear Track Bridge, Hip Strip, Front and Main Street conversions. Front and Main Street conversions, they're fixing that. The whole idea is that they have to be two-way because it's basically the design standards as the double thread, as they call them, is being seen as unsafe, and the grants requires this transfer. So it's very much like one of those things where it's just like you have all these best laid plans for what you want to do to improve the area, and they have this added functionality of Front and Main Street thrown in there to get people to be a certain level of compliance. So there was a lot of speculation whether or not it was going to be Main Street was going to be very much like 6th and 5th Street, where they go the single lanes going in one direction, which honestly was probably the best thing I ever did in the Missoula area. The traffic is just so much smoother going down 6th Avenue. It's ridiculous. But overall, trying to improve traffic and preserve space for multimodal transportation. Like I said, multimodal is Missoula's favorite word in this matter because they're looking for alternative ways for transportation rather than just being solely car. Also look to the area is another thing being developed, is making it aesthetically pleasing, all the while trying to keep costs low. To learn more, they are hosting an open house at the library here October 8th from 4:30 to 7 p.m. and that's on a Wednesday. So further down the meeting, we're going to land use and planning. Man, I'm really slowly going through this, but we only have 2 more quotes for you guys, and just to kind of go over the Paisley Park annexation. Dave DeGrand-Pré is talking about this additional annexation of the property that is just adjacent to George Elmer, Flynn Lane, England Boulevard, and so here he is talking about that.
Slide is really for informational purposes. It doesn't relate so much to the specific project at hand, but I wanted to provide you all with some context as to what's happening in this area. Over the last 5 years or so, since the Swift-Decane plan was developed and the form-based zoning code was adopted, we've seen several different entitlement or development projects that have gone through the planning board and the city council. And so I wanted to show you how they kind of relate to each other. As you probably know, this is also in the build grant area or the build project area. And so what I hope to show you here is you can see the subject property with the star just south of Missoula Airport. And the red lines indicate major thoroughfares, collector roads.
And so the main road that they're talking about is England Boulevard, which is the main street that connects the back neighborhoods of the Mullen Build project, essentially to Costco and, Ross and Arby's and many of those other places kind of like in that kind of like commercial district area. But part of this is going to extend through England Boulevard. This is kind of like becoming a Johnson Street of sorts for throughway traffic from residential to commercial, like I said, Costco. Dave also talks about what these areas could look like, and they had a basic rendering of what they want to do with a mixed use of, houses, duplexes, apartment complexes, trails, green space, and just an overall neighborhood aesthetic.
Streets that are being built by the developer in phases and dedicated to the city. And the main corridors really, as I mentioned at the outset, are where the existing easements are. So in the southwest corner, Chuckwagon Drive, which will connect to Mullen, and then England Boulevard running east-west, running through the center of town that will eventually connect to George Elmer and also to Reserve farther to the east.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in that area. area. And a lot of people are definitely worried about the impacts to the schools and the amount of people that are going to be moving into the particular neighborhood. Throughout the meeting, they presented their research on water, flooding, and sewer, and they determined that this parcel of land is actually 5 feet above the highest water level that's recorded and slightly higher than most of the homes in the area as have already been developed. So it's hard to convince people to move in close to the airport because it's like right there next to the airport. If you actually looked at the map, south of the airport, it's not a joke. Like when I went to Hellgate Elementary, it's like I'd hear every plane that landed. And this property is definitely a lot closer to the airport. So buyer beware. Another public hearing on code reform is scheduled for Thursday, October 9th inside the Floriculture building at the fairgrounds, otherwise known as the Butterfly House. The presentation's at 5:30. Event is, actually no, wait, Floriculture, my bad. It's one of the main buildings, but you'll probably know more. There's going to be signage and everything like that, but that's going to be happening Thursday, October 9th from 4 to 7 p.m. with a presentation at 5:30 p.m. on this particular topic on Paisley Park annexation and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of the areas around and surrounding area have already been annexed, but this is just one of those things that they got to clarify. And this is more continuation of more development in the area, which honestly is one of the largest developments happening just in the last decade. It's just insanely exploded into all these homes and everything like that. I remember the 2010s Expressway was kind of like the brand new neighborhood that just came out of nowhere. This one is just like hidden in plain sight, man. It's just like right there. It's just like, whoa, there's so many apartment complexes, so many things there. I mean, I do feel bad for a lot of the people who live in those apartment complexes off of Mullen Road, which is right next to the water treatment facility. Not to mention there's that slaughterhouse that's off of the corner of Mullen and Reserve Streets. So there's definitely some issues there, but regardless of that, I just feel bad who for the people who have to live in that particular area who will have to eventually and evidently live with that smell every year. Just saying. No, that's basically a disclaimer for people who are going to want to move in that area. So don't. It's kind of like moving close to the train tracks. It's like, there's trains relinking, and then there's the horns. That's a big thing too, and like nobody's really doing anything about it, and nobody really cares to do anything about it. I've been to those community meetings, and people still bring it up, and it's like, oh, no. But I'm kind of getting off topic, but here's some of the new programs that are going to be airing on MCAT. This is a bunch of fun new programs that you guys can enjoy right now on our YouTube page.
Jean-Paul loves living over an auto shop. They lock up too damn early.
I tried to climb over the fence, but I fell back into the pit. Cracked a couple of ribs, Joan. I'm getting too old for it.
Oh, come on. A sneaky backstair exit feeds the soul. Admit it. You've been chewing on the image of yourself. Beckett, falling into an oil pit.
I limped home like a tramp.
Samuel Beckett as Charlie Chaplin. Then let's go to the circus. Watch the clowns, the animals, the trapeze.
The human condition under one tent.
And the colored lights. Don't forget the lights.
Circus flashes in colored letters.
Never. To look through your eyes would be a marvel. Your synesthesia. If you spelled the word circus, what colors do you see?
The sea would be Van Gogh's yellow.
His eye stocks.
Thinking about the tariffs as a secondary question, of course it makes things harder. It's really impossible to think about that in any other way. It does not ease economic cooperation, and it causes economic hardship for the United States' partners and allies. And so with raw materials particularly, there are some tariff barriers that have been put in place. There have been discussion that it'll be higher. This could be an encouragement potentially for domestic mining in the United States, but is something that it's hard to see a boon for international cooperation.
All right, guys, now it's time for Pre-Critic, where I prejudge a movie based on absolutely nothing but my biases towards movies in general. Kicking things off is one battle after another, or as I like to call it, Booger Nights. Boogie Nights director pulls out all the stops for your typical running away white guy as he tries to save his daughter and avoid capture from a government official that has the hots for his wife since they gave him the slip all those years ago when releasing illegal immigrants from camps. Basically, Trump's Antifa's wet dream, where a bunch of former freedom fighters try to escape their past and have to confront it in the form of a former security guard turned military man with a mission to get Leo, because, let's face it, the movie is half as expensive as the actors in it. All right, Strangers 2. Try to do Halloween 2 with the Scream Queen that survived the first attack by a bunch of NIMBY townies, only to have half finish the job. Then they go after the gal while she's in the hospital and essentially becomes Halloween 2. You want a horror film in the hospital, look at the hospital bill. That's the real horror film. Enjoy those porcelain masks as they hide their human faces with a scary 1950s nuclear family trope. Enjoy a movie that teaches you not to trust anywhere, all at once. Finally, we got Gabby's Dollhouse. Let's line things up with a very kiddies kind of kid movie kind of deal for kids like kind of 5 and under. This is a type of show that gets Paw Patrol treatment when you bring the real world into a narrative part of an animated kid show with live action narrative and they go on a road trip. Or a lot of times they do all these kind of things. Nothing really substantially happens to change the narrative of the whole entire series. They just go on a fun vacation or whatever. Then we got Eleanor the Great. It's never too late to make a movie, and aging actor June Squibb takes yet another crack at old lady who's out of touch, learning the ways of her story by being told by a young up-and-coming actor who's basically in everything Disney's ever put out. BFFs. This one is for those looking for comedy movies, but don't really care enough to give the cinematic treatment. The movie looks like it was shot on like iPhones, but regardless, like iPhone 4, not to be confused with the new iPhones, which have been used in great movies. But essentially, your old friend comes back and a prank war starts between adults who are having a childlike prank war. And essentially this movie is basically like reconnecting with an old friend that you were with like in middle school or even early parts of high school before you discovered ladies. All right. Those are the movies that are coming out this weekend. I have a new Dubbin Stuff from the 1960 movie Tormented. So here's this.
Excuse me, little girl. Are you okay? You seem to be just standing out here. Do you like lighthouses? Well, I hope you're not reaching for a gun.
I'm well within my rights.
Well, of course, a girl of your age should be allowed to carry a gun.
Well, I think it's a little bit more dangerous.
Well, what could be more dangerous than a weapon like that? Oh. Are you trying to sell me something? What do you got behind your back if it's not a gun?
It's a catalog for Girl Scout cookies.
Ugh, and me without my wallet. You don't have anything in stock currently, do you?
Well, we're fresh out of peppermint patties and samosas.
Ugh, a fate worse than death. Why bother? Oh no, don't cry. You know what? I forgot my... Hold on a second.
At last, the treasure is all mine. He'll never know.
Where's the blasted Girl Scout? Why do I have to live in this beach? Knock, knock. Anyone home? Just kidding. You know who it is. What are you doing here? Are you kidding me? I'm just here to visit my best friends. Well, how come we're only best friends when you want something from me? Because I want something from you. You know, there's a limit on friends that you meet in school. You know, the forced proximity friends that you make along the way. Hey, come on, man. Remember when I got the answers to that test? You would have failed if you didn't get it from me. I don't know how you did it. Well, you know, some people learn, some people memorize answers. That's just the way life is. You know, I don't need much money. I just need a couple bucks to pay for some Girl Scout cookies. Nothing last week it was Boy Scout popcorn. What's next? ADA accessible donuts? Well, that's both a great idea and a horrible one at the same time, optic-wise. Because, you know, they're wheels and, yeah, it's not a really good look overall. So you should probably take that back if you're, you know, more conscientious about other people's feelings and, it's a good idea, but, it might not stretch that far with a lot of people just because, it's kind of obvious, but also, not cool. Well, I'm just tired of you asking for money. Could you just stop? Come on, man, it's just a favor. Can you just help a brother out? We're good friends, and look at me. I'm wearing a sweet hat and a sweet coat, all thanks to you helping me along the way. It's not that complicated. It's just a couple bucks. I'll do the finder's fee for you, Give me some extra money. I'll go buy you some, whatever you want. Thin mints, samosas, God, that new one with the toffee inside the cookies. Those kind of things that they have there, really dry stuff. I'll even buy the milk. I don't really have time for this. All the more reason to get me to go for you. In the meantime, I'll wait here. Oh, you know what? Fine. I'll give you something. Maybe you can take some money. Go get the Girl Scout cookies. You're a real prince, you know that? I'll make sure to bring back all the best. Oh, by the way, there are no samosas or Thin Mints. She's fresh out. So I'll get whatever's the next best option. Maybe that raspberry Thin Mint stuff that they just made. No, I take it back. No, stop.
Hey guys, welcome back. Let's talk about some events that are happening in and around the city of Missoula. Kicking things off is the rummage sale. There's a bunch of things happening here in town, basically already happening right now. Usually they do until a little bit into the afternoon at St. Paul Lutheran Church. They're doing a rummage sale there, so get some old clothes. Usually church sales are always really good at finding kids' clothing. So if you have a kid or you're looking for some cheap clothing and reusable clothing, a lot of times kids grow out their clothes within 5 minutes ago. So you can enjoy that, St. Paul Lutheran Church. They also have a walk-in flu vaccine clinic at Blue Mountain Clinic. You can walk in to get your flu shot. You can also do some scheduling at many other places in town, but they're doing a walk-in flu clinic. Missoula Food Bank meal distribution at the Missoula Food Bank every Friday at 10 a.m. Tiny Tales at the Missoula Public Library. This is a great way for kids to engage with learning and reading from 0 to 5 here at the library. It's called Tiny Tales. It starts at 10:30 a.m. every Friday. Preschool play group at Roots Ecker Sports Center. It's getting colder outside and you want your kid to stay active and indoors having some fun. It's time to do it. Roots, Mismo, and then the Sports Barn, which is kicking some things off over the weekend, like lacrosse and many other things happening this weekend as well. Lunch at the Missoula Senior Center, at the Poverello Center. These are programs put in place for folks that want to utilize this. This happens daily from at 11:30 at Missoula Senior Center, but also the POV, which provides these kind of things as well. Missoula Food Bank is always good for folks as well looking and struggling economically to find cheap and nutritious food. We also have Yarns and Watercolor here at the Missoula Public Library every Friday at noon. This is a great way for stitching, crocheting, knitting, all that kind of stuff. Or if you want to drop by the Makerspace on Saturdays, they also have sewing circles. And so they have sewing machines there to help people mend their clothing. So that's every Friday at noon on the 4th floor at the library. Housekeeping and hospitality job fair at the Plaza branch. They're looking to hire a lot of people at Plaza branch. Housekeeping and hospitality job fair. They're seeking passionate individuals to join their team. It's a Plaza basically career fair at the Plaza starting at 12 noon today. There's the Grizz Career Closet Donation Drive. This has been going on since early this month. It started on the 9th of September, and this is a big way to help professionals and people to wear professional attire, and they're looking for people to donate to Aber Hall, Brentley Hall, DHC Lobby, Eck Hall, Journalism Main Lobby, Mansfield Library, Missoula College, Payne Family and American Center, Skaggs Building, University Center. These are all the places you can drop off your professional clothing that you want to donate for people for job interviews. And there's the All Abilities Art Club at Base at 1 o'clock this afternoon. They do it every so often. It's a great way for people with disabilities to have a place to do art and also use some of the resources that they have at Base. Random walk-ins with random walks with Wild Montana. This is Blue Mountain Recreation Area. Mike Young, a chapter board member for the organization, is for a short hike along the motorized use Lollipop Trail that passes through an open forest of ponderosa pine, Douglas fir, and western larch with occasional views. This is only about 1.6 miles in length. Dress for weather, bring water, sunscreen, and more. This is just a walk. They're going to be introducing these. They usually do them quite a bit. The Sting is going to be playing at the Roxy. Robert Redford Films, Rest in Peace, will be playing out throughout the weekend, not just in the afternoon. So this is going to be the Roxy with the first show at 5:15. Pottery Date Night. Clay Studio Missoula hosts these kind of pottery date nights. They're doing one tonight at 6 p.m. Dungeons and Dragons for adults here at the Missoula Public Library at 6 p.m. This is an online event for people who want to do a little bit of dabbling in Dungeons and Dragons. Karaoke at the Jack Saloon. Jack Saloon does some karaoke there. Sacred Cacao ceremony at 7 p.m. at Sacred Alley. 7:30 this is the Missoula Outdoor Cinema. They're presenting Wicked, the musical, which will be at the Missoula Fairgrounds. So you get to see the first half before the next half premieres this December. Wolf and Moons at the Old Post is going to be playing at 8 p.m. tonight. Cash for Junkers is going to be at Union Club tonight at 9. Dakota Poorman is going to be playing some country at the Sunrise Saloon at 9:30 p.m. And electronic music, Jackson at Top Hat starting at 10:30 p.m. tonight. And then as always, Saturday markets are going to go well until the end of October. And it will have a continuance for your winter market during the winter time. But also I wanted to mention Hazardous Waste Days. Events are kicking things off at Home Resources, and they hope to make this into a long-term, year-long event, kicking things off tomorrow at 8 a.m. from 8 to 4 p.m. Saturday 27th. The event will be held at the permanent year-round household chemical disposal facility located behind the Home Resource. Appointments are required to cost $15. Which is $5 off the regular fee. Donations are limited to 10 gallons per household. This is usually paints, toxic waste. Participants should review the acceptable material guide and the participation and transportation guide available on their website at Home Resource for more information. And they're going to be doing the normal hours through October, Tuesdays from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., Fridays from noon to 4 p.m. Impact Foundation fundraising garage sale at Impact Martial Arts. They're hosting this to provide scholarships for kids for the martial arts. So this is from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. to support scholarships for local kids, and this is through Impact Martial Arts. Triumph Motorcycle Demo Day. Maverick Motorsports is the demo Triumph motorcycles. Speed 400 and Scrambler 400 must have a motorcycle endorsement and be 18. Sawiti Food Truck will be there, and sales and parts and accessories and so much and so forth. Kindergarten through second grade, Intro to Lacrosse. This is a thing that they do at the sports barn. This is some indoor fun for kids who want to learn some lacrosse starting at 9:30 a.m. on Saturday. Soccer 101 behind the scenes, practice with Grizz Solf. If you get an exclusive look at what it takes to compete in the collegiate level of the Grizz Soccer, and you also get some free tickets to their soccer game and practices. So you'll want to watch them. This is going to be happening on Saturday at 10 a.m. at the South Campus Stadium. Line dancing at Missoula Senior Center every Saturday at 10 a.m. Makerspace walk-in hours at 10 a.m. here at the Missoula Public Library. Do some 3D printing, laser scanning, all sorts of things, engravers, all sorts of fun things here at the library. Climate Fest at Karis Park at 10 a.m. Missoula Fairy Tale at the Green Bench Orchard. This is the Missoula Fairy Tale is back in Orchard this year. Your family to see a pop-up fairy village made of local artists. The family out at the Green Bench Orchard is delightful fairy house hut among apple trees. This is Saturday and Sunday from 10 to 1 on Saturdays and, hold on. Yep, 10 to 1 Saturdays and Sundays, and all are welcome free of charge, no purchase for apples necessary for entry. Cool. Story time at Missoula Public Library every Saturday at 10:30 p.m. Like Tiny Tales, this is a great story time for kids 0 to 5 to learn to read and have stories read to them. Museum tour at 11 a.m. at Missoula Art Museum. MCAT Saturday drop-ins. This is a stop-motion animation from 1 to 3 every Saturday at MCAT. Saturday Kids Creative Center at the Natural History Center. They're taking from us some of the Saturday drop-in kids, but this is a drop-in program at the Montana Natural History Center. It's for ospreys with binoculars, dissect owl pallets, or walk a model of the solar system. Every month features a new topic, which is the creatures of the night. Montana Pumpkin Truck Painting Class, Painting with a Twist at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. They're at the Stevens Center. Hands-on Science Wildlife Week at Spectrum Discovery Center, talking about wildlife in their science exhibit here on the second floor of the Missoula Public Library. Meet Arthur at the library with PBS Kids. Having hard isn't hard when you have a library card. Celebrate Library Card Sign Up Month with our favorite aardvark, Arthur. Stop by at Imaginary Level 2 to say hi to Arthur. Get some free coloring books, decorate your own bookmark, and enjoy the fun activities. Introduction to glassblowing at Hearts of Fire Pottery and Art Studio at 6 p.m. on Saturday. Morgan Thomas is performing folk at Draftworks at 7 p.m. Bill G. at the Jack Saloon playing country at 7 p.m. The Sting is continuation Robert Redford Appreciation at 8 p.m. on the Roxy. The Jive is going to be performing at the Stave and Hoop. Karaoke at Westside Lanes at 9 p.m. Push Loop is going to be at Monk's with Medicine Place and Contra. Chatterbox and Friends playing some electronic music and DJ hip hop. Will and Aaron Jennings is going to be wrapping you up for your Union Club at 9 p.m. with Chris Moon as the DJ at the Badlander. And finally, Dakota Poor Man Band playing some country at the Sunrise Saloon on Saturday night to wrap up everything Saturday as we jump into Sunday with the Fierce Fab Women's Running Festival. This is at the Historic Museum at Fort Missoula, an evening event with your fiercest, most fabulous self. Join the September in Historic Fort Missoula to empower for an empowering and full day full of where you can walk and run as many as 1 mile laps as you like within the 2-hour period, all kicking off at 9:30 a.m. DIY deodorant. So Digco is hosting a do-it-yourself deodorant where you can take with you for those of you who have a gluten allergy and cannot put on deodorant because of that. And so Safe Kids Fair at Allegiance Field at Oregon Park. Bring your full family Safe Kids Fair on Sunday, September 28th from noon to 3 p.m. at Oregon Park. Their free event provides hands-on safety activities, exciting mascot appearances, and immunization clinic, face painting, games, prizes, and more. Families can meet community safety experts and connect with local resources while kids learn important skills in fun and interactive ways. It's also dance class at Rocky Mountain Ballet Theater at 1 p.m. So these are kind of these dance classes. You might see the Folklore Society, a lot of different things here in town. They're doing it at 1 p.m. on Sunday. Five Valley Accordion Association at Missoula Senior Center at 1 p.m. on Sundays. The Concerto with Bitterroot Baroque Orchestra, St. Paul Episcopal Church. I'm totally butchering all these, but the concerto is going to be performed at 2 p.m. at the church. It's an Italian concerto meant in an agreement or accord, a state of harmony, but looking further into its Latin roots with the word of concentare. I'm totally butchering everything, but guest musicians include Maureen Murchie, violin, and Nathan Whitaker, cello, lead the Bitterroot Baroque Orchestra in a program exploring the concerto in the 18th century, featuring soloists from across the world. The whole orchestra, my bad, sorry. Woo, that was rough. Sometimes you get rough reading some of these things, but we're going to move on. We're going to talk about rat stops and bleed workshops. Missoula Public Library, rat stops bleeding workshops. Learn bleeding control through rats. Resist against tyranny at the Blackfoot Communications Room. Bleeding is the #1 cause of preventable deaths after injury. You'll get hands-on experience on how to apply direct pressure, pack a wound, and use a tourniquet. Security register at the link. Boogie Nights is going to be playing at the Roxy just in lieu of the Paul Thomas Anderson movie that's premiering this weekend. So you get a chance to see Boogie Nights in 35mm on Sunday at the Roxy at 3 p.m. and 7 p.m. Marty O'Reilly's concert is going to be at the Ritual, starting at 7:30 p.m. Very funny weekend comedy open mic at VFW. So dust off your comedy chops at VFW every Sunday at 8 p.m. And they got karaoke to wrap up your Sunday night at Sunrise Saloon. So yeah, those are the things that are happening there. I honestly just ran out of time. I wish I could have done some of the news things here as well, but I also wanted to talk about the Montana DOJ raises greenwashing claims, investigative of the big four tech firms that are promising for green energy across the nation, but in Montana we have certain rules that say, hey, why don't you give coal a chance? And so that's what the big news story is on the MontanaFreePress.org. As of right now, I just saw it just pop up this morning, so you guys can check that out. This is a heavily footnoted 15-letter dated September 24th. The Attorney General accused the company engaging in a shell game involving renewable energy certificates, or RECs. So some more information about that, but I'm running out of time. And for Wake Up Missoula, I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. And I'm Scott Ramf.